Hi, welcome to Off Script. I'm Zach Lewis.
And I'm Dr. Draper.
Today on the show, we're talking about Talk to Me, the highest rated horror film of the year. Really excited to get into this. We've been looking forward to it for a long time from A24. Also taking a look at They Clone Tyrone, a Netflix feature. You might have seen this on your front page. I'm telling you, we are a show that blows off Netflix features sometimes. Please stick around and listen to this review. There's something cool going on in this movie, at least in my humble opinion. Very excited to talk about They Clone Tyrone. Not a sleeper. It's good stuff. We're talking about Haunted Mansion, a movie I didn't plan on seeing this week. We weren't going to cover it for the show, but Christine and I were talking, and she kind of wanted to see it. So we went last night and caught a screening. I'm going to cover that one solo. And before we get to all of it, we need to talk about the news. First things first, the delays. Andy, it's finally happening. Following the writers and actors strike, films are starting to get pushed back. They're far away. People don't know about them yet, but something's going on. What's this about, Andy?
Well, last week we talked that there were a couple of delays already happening, and that was Challengers was being pushed to 2024, Poor Things was being pushed to December. It was the beginning of what we thought might be a domino effect of film delays, and sure enough, that's exactly what's happened this week. First off, we have the Gran Turismo movie, which was supposed to come out in about a week and a half, and that's been pushed.
It's not just a game. Yeah.
Yeah. That's been pushed only a couple of weeks to August 25th, and this is interesting because they can't have any star power, but they're hoping to release like some small like preview screenings and hoping that like there's some audience buzz about that. I don't think that's going to really work, but that's what they're doing. But that's been moved just to the end of the month. Some of the bigger delays have been Craven the Hunter was supposed to come out this October, has been pushed a full year from now to August 2024. That's pretty wild. That's an R-rated comic book thing, so they definitely want star power for that. Spider-Verse 3, Beyond the Spider-Verse, has been taken off the calendar entirely and not been given a new date. But the previous date was a little shaky to begin with, so that's not really surprising until that production gets really full back and rolling. Who knows when that's going to come out. The Karate Kid movie reboot, something or other that's coming out. This was supposed to be out next summer, has been pushed from June 2024 to December 2024. And the Ghostbusters sequel to Ghostbusters Afterlife. I should be jailed for that sentence. Yeah. And this was supposed to come out, it's supposed to be a Christmas release, has been now moved to March 29th, 2024. So that's 5 in addition to the 3 last week. So we're looking at 5 delays so far. It's not looking good.
Boy, the studios have got to start. They got to come to the table and talk to these people. I was just reading an article earlier about guys who were crew, like a gaffer or a grip. They're like just getting killed at their bills. They're literally just letting them go into delay because they can't find work because nothing's going on in the industry right now. Writers and actors striking doesn't just hurt like the studios, it hurts the people who are cursory to the studios, it hurts the people at home, it hurts theaters. I saw a thing not that long ago about the CEO of AMC is trying to get studios to kind of go talk to these people like, hey, like this is going to be hurting our business soon, you know? And the funny thing is a lot of these studios own streaming services and they can not make money on those because those are all taking a cut. I don't really get the strategy here. But what seems to be obvious is films are going to start getting delayed because studios are going to have to start pacing themselves with what they have available or what they will have available or what they haven't shot yet and still have to get crew for that they can't get because the writers and actors are on strike. And this whole bogus thing that they're just going to like wait people out. They're just going to wait till, I don't know, people lose their homes and then come back for a penance doesn't help anyone. It doesn't help the industry. It doesn't help good creative. It doesn't help good art. It doesn't help good film. I'm very disappointed in what I feel like the big studios are doing with this, Disney, Universal, Paramount. There needs to be a pivot, and this is one of the big markers for that, hey, projects are officially getting pushed. Money is officially getting moved around. So I don't know. Andy, any chance you think they're going to come to the table soon? Are we looking at this for another few months? Where do you think this is headed?
So a few things that I've read is that earnings call, I think, for Disney come August 8th. They're going to see how that turns out. They're probably going to be able to ride... Well, I was going to say ride the summer movies, but Disney's been getting demolished at the box office, so that's probably not going to be real great. but they probably won't really feel the effects until the next quarter. The longest, if this goes into October, it will be the longest that the strike has ever gone on. We'll see. I think the actors and writers are prepared to go the distance because it's not. I mean, they're the ones who really have to change the industry. The big studios are never going to change without being put, to the fire.
It seems like it, and this has happened before. Historically, like, actors and writers have been unionized for reasons just like this, for getting exploited for pay and resources, and they'll go on strike, and studios will hem and haw and eventually come around and, find a compromise. They're not going to give them everything they want. You're going to get close to it. Like, it's not like taking a hard L here, but I don't know. It seems like they just don't want to play ball. I hope something changes soon. Spider-Verse is the big one here. I've seen Spider-Verse, with a big ad on the Spider-Verse screenshots, the ones getting linked for these stories. But like Andy said, that one was shaky anyway. Like, Sony had said May 2024, I think was what it was going to be. And people who worked on the second film that just came out are like, there's no way. Like, that's not happening. Haley Steinfeld said she hadn't even recorded VO for it. Like, so that one's kind of a pipe dream anyway. But Kraven the Hunter, like, I think I saw an ad for that in front of Barbie. Like, that's getting nearly a year. Like, good God.
It's gonna be the new Morbius, where we have to watch the trailer for another year.
Right. Yeah. I already saw people complaining about having to watch the Gran Turismo trailer for another 2 weeks, which is really funny. That one's baffling because that's based on a true story. Like, why not just get the actual kid to promote it, right? You can't get the actors, but you can get the guy it's based on. Whatever. I obviously, I don't know how all this stuff works. What I do know is these strikes ain't helping anybody. So somebody needs to step up, and I don't know if it should be the people who've been sweating outside for 3 months. Maybe it should be the studio heads in the cushy mansions, the big bucks.
I bet you the Gran Turismo kid probably makes like a cameo in the movie, and so he's probably like officially an actor, and that's why he can't.
Oh my God, that would be hilarious, right? He's got an acting credit in there, so technically they've trounced themselves. You're probably right. It's like Jordan Belfort shown at the end of Wolf of Wall Street. Anyway, one more story to get to this week from the box office. We got to talk about these numbers. Haunted Mansion turns out to be a fat dud. Wah wah. And Barbie is still killing it, right? I would say I can't believe it, but after seeing how it did in week one, I certainly can. What do you think, Andy?
So huge weekend, second weekend for both Barbie and Oppenheimer. Barbie made $93 million in its second weekend. Oppenheimer made $46 million. Both only a drop of about 40%. To put that in perspective, most movies have like a 55 to 60 or more % drop off in that second week. That first week is the big thing. So they've had just a slight drop off, huge amount of money. Barbie recently today passed 800 million globally, well on its way to the $1 billion club. Probably by the end of this week, or definitely the weekend for sure. And of course, Disney's Haunted Mansion, which we can't come up with a good pun for, floundered at about 25 million. It was expected to make around 30 million, but it was a very expensive $150 million movie, tons of VFX. It's a flop officially. So rough weekend for Disney again.
It's so interesting to me that Haunted Mansion is a flop because it's one of those things that, like, on paper, if you step back and simply look at returns, it's doing great. Talk to Me just came out this week. We're just about to talk about it after this story. And that movie's made in a budget of like $4.5 million, right? Micro budget, functionally, as far as what else is out there today. And it turned out 10 million opening weekend. It's already doing great, right? It's still got a bit more to go before it clears marketing, but they're gonna get there. Meanwhile, like, Haunted Mansion comes out and makes $24.2 million opening weekend. Holy God, that's great return, right? Like, that's not bad. Problem is, Haunted Mansion cost $150 million. And then the marketing for Haunted Mansion was another $100 million. Like, what are they doing? How are you spending $250 million to make and market a film, and it's not turning out numbers like Barbie? Like, it's becoming increasingly obvious that theater goers only want to go to the theater for things that are genuinely going to impress or are going to be something new and innovative and something they haven't seen before. And Disney has this ridiculous, like, reiteration policy where they're just going to keep making the same old thing over and over again. And not only is that not going to put butts in seats, it's not going to buy tickets at your theme park that is built on movies that are original and new. Like, it's really odd, and they need to pivot, and they got to do something. And Haunted Mansion, again, on paper, did fine for an opening movie, but like the budget is outrageous. They got to start reining this in. That comes from good pre-production. That comes from not burning VFX studios, and it comes from making good movies. And by the way, also I should say, while I'm sitting here dunking on Haunted Mansion, I did kind of like it. So I'm going to talk about it at the end of the show, because it's not bad. It really isn't. It is not a bad film. I'm looking forward to talking about it. Anything else before we jump to Talk to Me, Andy?
Well, I wanted to mention that Talk to Me made about $10 million in its opening weekend. Again, this is a story about budget. This is a successful launch for this small film because it only cost $4.5 million to make. So they're already well into profit territory. It's probably going to have another good weekend. This weekend is as well. Might have, sometimes horror has legs. So it's a hit by indie standards because of a reasonable budget.
Ooh, one more story from the box office this week while I'm thinking about it. Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning came out towards the beginning of July.
Dead box office.
Kind of got, yeah. hey, now, kind of got flattened by Barbenheimer. Right now, it's coming through at a total of about $448 million global, which is definitely not bad. Just like Haunted Mansion's return, that is not a bad number. But for Mission Impossible, it's not great. And we talked about it a little bit last week. Andy, you want to revisit that at all? Because I have a new theory as to why it's not doing that well. Because typically Mission Impossible movies do fine.
So a lot of factors here. Number one, it's crushed between several big properties. It came out about a week after Indiana Jones 5, and then it came out right before Barbie and Barbenheimer, and also it lost all its premium screens, all its IMAX screens to Oppenheimer, and so it doesn't have the footprint it did, and also it's just it's a little lackluster.
I think it really is running into a problem of like streaming availability. There's so many streaming services out there now that people can sub to for less than the cost of one movie ticket for a whole month's worth of content. And when you start to get into deep sequels, right, like Fast X or Transformers 8 or Mission Impossible 7, even the bigger franchises, I think, are hurt the most by that sensation of like streaming availability, because a lot of people feel like, you know what, I'll just wait for it to come to streaming. Right? It's the 7th Mission Impossible movie. What am I going to miss there? But then Barbie or Oppenheimer comes out and it feels new and original and gains like cultural value in the cultural zeitgeist because, it's something different and people want to see that. Not that Mission Impossible 7 isn't different. We covered it, just last week. A couple weeks ago. I take it back because we had Barbenheimer. So you can go back and check out our review on that. But for now, should move into reviews. Very excited to talk about this one. We've been looking forward to this all year. Andy's going to take the summary on it. Andy, please take it away.
Talk to Me. So, Zach, feel free to correct anything that I get wrong here. Talk to Me is the latest film from new directors Danny and Michael Philippou, who blew up on YouTube. They're big YouTube creators under the Raka Raka channel. Is that correct?
Yes.
So this is their first feature film out of New Zealand, and it's kind of teen horror thing that we saw a trailer. It looked really scary, and the story is we meet a character named Mia, played by Sophie Wilde. Mia has recently had a death in the family. Her home life is a little rough. She spends a lot of time at her friend's house, Jade, and her little brother Riley and Daniel. They'll live in this house. She's good friends with the mom, played by Miranda Otto. They're all in high school. They go to a party one day, where all the cool kids are, and the cool kids have somehow gotten a hold of this mummified hand that says, "Hey, if you grab it and say, 'Talk to me,' some spirits will kind of come in. You'll be possessed for a little bit, but you can only hang on for 90 seconds because otherwise, quote, they'll want to stay." So naturally, the teens do what they shouldn't. They play with fire, and eventually, they can't kind of get the spirits to leave, and a lot of things begin to go wrong. And that's our setup. This movie is really pretty scary. A lot of good original horror, and great to see. Zach, what'd you think?
Talk to Me is the highest rated horror film of the year, which is crazy. We've seen nothing but good reviews from early critics who have seen it. So naturally, we were really excited to check it out. And I can say pretty satisfyingly, Talk to Me feels like a smart amalgamation of a lot of what works in cinema brought together with a new voice, right? With somebody we haven't really seen before, or I should say a couple of people, Danny and Michael Philippou. I think Talk to Me's like uniquely special. Although I will admit, I think it is a little smaller than a lot of the hype leads you to be. If you walk into this movie thinking it's going to be like the biggest, grandest thing, remember, $4.5 million budget. You're not getting anything really huge. But what you're getting is something like uniquely intimate and refreshing that you don't have to have seen a sequel for or a prequel for. There's no homework required. You can walk straight into Talk to Me and see something that feels very trendy and very modern and very aware of the audience it's serving. The Philippous are surprisingly modern. Everybody's got a cell phone. Every teenager is filming things and posting them at all times. It creates an environment and a setting where I think this kind of horror can uniquely thrive because it doesn't feel as unnatural, I think, as maybe it actually is. Talk to Me is really cool, and I'm excited to talk about it. Andy, where do we start?
Oh, why don't we start with our cast? So these are all, I think, Aussie or Kiwi actors from New Zealand. Newcomer Sophie Wilde leads the project. Like I said, she's got some things going on at home. Recently experienced a death in the family. She's the one. When these people grab the hand, they're kind of inviting kind of a random spirit to kind of possess them for a little bit. But when she does it, she kind of hears people close to her family. It kind of hits a little bit too close to home, and so she wants to keep doing it. She's like, I gotta, I want to hear their voice again. I want to reach out. So it's one of those things. Too much of a good thing is like I heard the voice of my deceased family member. I want to get more of that. She has a lot of possession scenes. A lot of people get possessed in this, but I think kind of what works is that it's not like The Exorcist where someone's like possessed full time. It's just kind of in little spurts. It makes it a little bit easier to kind of handle. Other standouts are like I said, her friend Jade. And she has a boyfriend named Dan. All these people kind of touch the hand and experience it a little bit. But really interesting cast.
Yeah, lots of fun. All these kids, most of them feel like newcomers to me, at least. Special mention for Zoe Tarakas and Chris Alosio for Haley and Joss, the two kind of wardens of the hand. They are phenomenally charming. Oh my god, it's kind of the seedy younger character, and this like big buff dude who's responsible for like ripping the hand away from people if they're hanging on for it too long. I love this like haunted artifact of the hand. It's cool looking, it's interesting, and much like a Jumanji board, like you don't really know the rules going in. So all these kids are playing with it like, oh, it's like fun and weird and twisted, but it makes you feel good like in these like insane moments where you're like seizing and your eyes turn black. And nobody can determine if it's real or not, right? And like that feeling of like skepticism that like, number one, this thing cannot actually be what people claim, and number two, the sensation of grief that our lead carries, Mia, both like pull her into trying the hand, right? I just want to try it for a second just to see how it feels. And in that way, Talk to Me shapes this device as functionally like a metaphor for like drugs, right? There's a great party montage where they're all playing with it and the music's going and they're having a great time, and like you could swap the hand out for like crack or a bong or something,
Yeah,
and it would
drinking.
functionally be the same scene. Like it's great. Like all these kids like are delighted by like the horror of this thing because they feel like, oh, they can control it and they understand it and they have rules, right? And much like Flatliners, like eventually somebody takes it a little too far or gets tricked or something turns on its head and the monkey paw curls and you end up with like this horrifying scenario that these characters just cannot get out of to save their lives. I love it. Like great setup, great first act, really catapults you into like what's possible.
Right. I wanted to get into our plot a little bit. Like we said, we have the hand. It temporarily possesses people. Eventually, it kind of goes on longer, and it seems to be where the kind of visions or possession kind of begin to take place even without the hand. And we start to have a lot of these things of like, well, what's real and what's not. It doesn't overdo that, which would be a misstep if it did. It's just enough to kind of keep things creepy. But there's a couple of subplots going on between, Mia's life at home, along with some interteen drama, some love triangle effects. So we kind of touch on there. I think what I would have liked to have seen is just this on like a $10 to $15 million budget. You could have had a classic. Get a few more passes at the script, really nail it down, make it tighter, get into some more of the lore. It's like it does a good job with all these things, but it's like, man, you could have really had something with maybe a little bit more time and budget.
Yeah, I think like I said, I think people are walking in maybe with expectations a little too high, a little like Skinamarink. Like that got a lot of buzz early, and a lot of people were like, "Man, this movie's freaky." And then you walk in, you're like, "Oh, it's definitely simpler than I thought." And that's like, I think, not a bad feeling to walk in to talk to me with. Like, don't get too excited. But like, what's here is a really, really great first step into what's next. The filmmaking here, I think I want to mention a couple things. Number one, a lot of really smooth camera work. Like lots of like not that much handheld, surprisingly. A lot of like really, really good like camera on a tripod pans, like slow movement, makes your camera feel a little out of place with your characters and makes you feel like you've got a bit of a, I don't know, like they're on a different plane than you. And like, I don't think that's a bad thing. David Fincher does it a lot. A lot of really good whip pans. When a kid gets possessed, they whip their head back and the camera yanks back with them. That's good stuff. Chair goes flying across the room, screams over there with it. Like a lot of fast kinetic motion that makes sharp events feel sharper. And then lastly, really good set design. There's a couple of great transitions like into or out of a dream sequence, or into an or out of a possession scene. When our character will be standing, your camera will kind of pan around them, and in one smooth take, like the background will shift around them, and when the camera pulls all the way around, they're in a different scene. Or one character goes from laying down horizontal to being vertical in one smooth camera movement. Like a lot of really effective tricks, I think, that comes out of the director's YouTube experience over on the Raka Raka channel. Really impressive, like subtle, but like cheap, practical filmmaking, and it pays dividends in this movie. Like it's great effects.
Right, it's taking the art of cinematography and seeing what can we do on this small budget to really make this creepy and interesting. And that's a good time to talk about the scares. We have a lot of body horror in this. There's a fair amount of gore. It doesn't rely on a bunch of jump scares. There's a couple, but that's not what creeps this movie out. A lot of the stuff that's like disturbing and is going to scare you is not going to jump out. It's the opposite. It's a lot of very slow, creepy things, or just like disturbing body horror that I was shocked at several moments. I was like, oh my God, it's going there. So it has a lot of good scares.
Yeah, like lots of tangible sensations, I think, in your theater, and also not a bad runtime. I think it's a tight 94 minutes, 95 looking at IMDb. If it was any longer, I think it might have overstayed its welcome. Like it manages to tell a unique story that feels like it pays tribute to other haunted artifact films, right, or possession films of yore. It's particularly reminded of like Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Hellraiser a little bit. I like this. I don't know. I like the energy of what's happening here, and I think it's uniquely special. I don't know what these two directors are doing next. I'd read somewhere they might be doing a Street Fighter movie. That's not listed on IMDb, the number one source for all things film. So I don't know if that's true, but I hope they stay in this space because this is a really great start to something bigger. I think. Like I think it's. Oh, one more thing I wanted to talk about. Oh my God, I can't believe I haven't talked about this. The modern stuff, the phones, right? Like any movie worth its salt nowadays has got to have people with phones, and in that way, like Talk to Me embraces a similar as place to where like Bodies was that we saw earlier this year. Every teenager has a cell phone, and they're all on Instagram, and they're all on Snapchat, and they're posting all the time. And I love it. I love that your characters are never like, oh no, the power's out and we can't use the landline. Your characters are never drawn to call for your characters aren't often drawn to call for help because they feel as if they can tackle it themselves, or they're too much in a panic and don't need it. Like, it's filmmaking for filmmaking's sake. You don't have to write around why characters aren't using the technology available to them. You need to write in why they're using what's there, and it's done to great effect. These two are young and they know it, and they talk to a young audience. Like, feels refreshing, feels nice in a movie theater. It's certainly not The Pope's Exorcist.
Yeah, they like when they first see the hand being used. Me and Jade see it on Instagram online. They're like, because someone else is posting videos of like, haha, look how possessed they are, and everyone's skeptical. They're like, no, that's not real. Let's go check this thing out. So it's a very smart way. And again, there's no like, oh, I don't have any service out here. Or, oh, I'm out in the middle. Like, there are times when you can use it and that's effective, but this film takes place in the modern day, in the city. That's never an excuse, and it's interesting to write with that.
Yeah. Overall, I think I was really pleased with Talk to Me, and I don't want to say much more without spoiling anything. Andy, anything else before reviews?
I just wanted to mention that it's always exciting when you see a new kind of hyped up film from new directors, and that it delivers, that it's not a letdown, and because that's almost more exciting than when I hear Tarantino doing his 10th film, and I'm much more excited about young new talent that really brings the heat than sometimes a lot of more established directors.
Yeah, hot same. Would you recommend Talk to Me?
Absolutely would, for fans of the horror genre. Again, horror not your thing, probably not. This is one to skip. Maybe Haunted Mansion's more of your up your scary alley. A lot of body horror and other kind of disturbing things. But I was generally creeped out, generally scared in a number of places. It touches on some interesting themes of loneliness and kind of just aloneness or being touch-starved, which I didn't expect. Great performances from this Australian and New Zealand cast. Highly recommend for horror fans.
Same. Talk to Me is great. You should totally go see it. If you are a horror fan, please go see this movie. Go see something that's not just a Blumhouse production, right? Go see something that's not Insidious 5, The Red Door. Go see something fresh. Go see something new. Support new voices in cinema. Talk to Me is good stuff. Please go see Talk to Me. Talk to Me is great. And you may not come off as shiny as we have. I know I've seen some people who are like, that wasn't what I expected. But like, God, isn't that nice every once in a while? Feels good, doesn't it? Like, to watch something that's just a little different. I think it is. So yeah, like, highly recommend Talk to Me. See it in a theater if you can. If not, I'm probably going to be on Paramount Plus, I think. Like, they seem to have a deal with Showtime, so this is an A24 feature. I'll bet it shows up over there, but we'll have to see where it shows up on streaming. Keep an eye out for Talk to Me. In the meantime, go check it out. Next up on the show, normally we do a bit of a segment in the middle here, right? Something fun. We talk about trailers that are coming up. We talk about what's killing cinema, the strike we talked about last week. We've talked about Disney in the past. But this week we're doing 3 reviews. So without further ado, I got to move into it, and I'm taking the summary. The movie is They Cloned Tyrone. They Cloned Tyrone is a new science fiction comedy, dramedy, blaxploitation film on Netflix. This came out a few weeks ago, and Andy and I missed it because July has been wall-to-wall movies. It has been wild. Indiana Jones, Mission Impossible, Barbenheimer, good Lord, Talk to Me. But now we've watched They Cloned Tyrone, and I'm glad we did, because there's something really special going on here. They Cloned Tyrone is the story of Fontaine, played by John Boyega, who I have not seen in a minute. I'm glad he's doing fresh stuff. Glad he's at it. He plays Fontaine, a drug dealer in what I think is Chicago. They call it the Glen. I never really placed where exactly they are, but anyway, an area of town that is not particularly nice, right? Fontaine is a drug dealer who's going around collecting his cash one night when he swings by local pimp Slick Charles's place, played brilliantly by Jamie Foxx. Slick Charles is great. Excited to talk about him. He also runs into Tiana Paris as Yo-Yo, a local lady of the night, I think I can say on iTunes and get away with. And unfortunately, something goes wrong, and Fontaine ends up on the bad end of a drug deal gone bad. But he wakes up in bed the next morning, to his surprise. Everything seems fine, but not everything is fine. Something did happen to Fontaine, and he heads back to Slick Charles' place, meets Yo-Yo, and the three of them begin to unravel a trail of breadcrumbs that turns into a bonkers conspiracy involving many things, but most importantly, as is described in the title, clones. They Clone Tyrone is about 2 hours long. It's available on Netflix right now. I'm excited to talk about it. Andy, what do you think?
It took me a little bit to get into this movie. I wasn't real sure where it was going. I do love the style of it because, again, it's in that blaxploitation style, very heavy film grain. You got characters like Jamie Foxx's Slick Charles, who's hilarious because he dresses and acts like a pimp out of a 70s blaxploitation movie. He's the only one who does. Everyone else is it takes place in the modern day. At first I thought it was like a period piece, but John Boyega shows up, has a cell phone, and it's they talk about like blockchain and modern things. So Jamie Foxx is the only one in that mode, but it's kind of the street drama, but it's a mix of something like Stranger Things actually came to mind in a lot of ways. There's kind of secret experimentation going on in the community, which echoes kind of old and long-held kind of conspiracy theory that the CIA planted drugs and guns in black neighborhoods to destabilize and other things like that. And this is kind of taking that idea and doing a more kind of sci-fi twist on it, where it's like there's scientific experimentation, there's secret labs are around town, and this is kind of done for a number of nefarious reasons. And a lot of it has to do with mind control through substances kind of put into the community, things like hair products, drinks, music, that sort of thing.
Boyega is playing a uniquely new character here. I definitely thought that he was kind of just going to be playing like his Attack the Block character, right? Like kind of gangster on the street, but this is American for sure. And Fontaine's hard, man. Like he's got gold grills and he doesn't take no shit from anybody. Like he collects money, and he's got the strap to back it up. Meanwhile, like Jamie Foxx's Slick Charles is like a Chappelle Show sketch. He's so funny, dude. Like it's so great. He keeps talking about he won like the 1994 Pimp of the Year award, and people need to put more respect on the name. And meanwhile, yeah, he looks like he fell right out of the 70s. He's great. Love Slick Charles. I hope Fox recovers, man. I know he posted an Instagram video saying he's doing all right. I hope so, because he's great in this movie. Like, great reminder just how funny Jamie Foxx is. And Teyonah Parris, like, I think you might watch her in this movie and forget that she's like Monica Rambeau in the Marvels. Right? Like,
yeah. I was like, where is she from?
I forgot. Yeah, no, yeah. I looked her up after. I was like, oh my God, like she's great. She's got like a ton of talent. She's really funny. And one of the things I think really gives these three the opportunity to shine is surprisingly long takes in some of their longer sequences. The film's directed by Juel Taylor, who's a first-time... he's not a first-time director, is he? He might be a first-time director. I might be out here talking smack. No. He's done a couple TV series. His first like film proper that he's put together, and of course it goes straight to Netflix. But hey, that's not to say it's not good stuff. There's a lot of style here, a lot of film grain, and these long takes I mentioned are in some of the film's like most tenuous moments. There's a whole sequence where Teyonah Parris like hits on this manager of a local restaurant and is trying to get information from him on whether or not he's like a spy or a bad dude. And it's all one like 4.5 minute sequence with like choreography, camera moving in and out of rooms, adjusting focus the entire time. John Boyega's Fontaine has a couple of sequences that are the same way, like sitting down, standing up, gets in a car, drives down the road, gets out. I'm just like, oh my God, like, look at this, like seamless transitions, like really some talent that you don't see every day. A surprisingly fresh new voice that made, I think, what could have been a lackluster script, like a bit more exciting.
Yeah, it definitely has a lot of style and a lot of kind of swagger through, which helps move it along. It's a little bit too long at a full 2 hours. This would have been a great 100-minute flick. It kind of gets bogged down in the middle. I felt Sutherland shows up kind of randomly. I didn't recognize him.
It was a surprise. Me neither. Yeah, it was a surprise.
Which this is like part of what Netflix does. Like they spend a lot of money on stars, and then don't let the script get polished enough. And some of this like looks cheap when they're in down of these secret labs. Again, it looks like the inside of a laser tag center or something of that. It's not quite convincing enough. This is something where they definitely didn't get the Stranger Things budget for the lab recreation.
No, but I appreciate your Stranger Things mention because it does have that feeling of like retro tech, right? Yeah. Like the things in there all look like they were made in the 50s and the 60s. Even though this film is like clearly set modern day, it's got this feeling of like the golden age of science that like Stranger Things leans way into. So like, yeah, that's totally a good call. I go ahead.
What'd you think of our performances?
I like the performances. Like I said, I think Boyega was really sharp. Like I like that he hardly ever cracks a joke in this movie, right? Like, which is really refreshing. Like he's not just like charming, charismatic John Boyega. He's like troubled and struggling, you know. And I think that's good stuff. Slick Charles is great. Tana Paris is really funny. Kiefer Sutherland was a bit of a surprise, but you know what? If you're going to show up halfway through a movie, why not be a surprise? I don't think that's a bad thing. How about you?
Sorry, say that one more time.
I
don't know. It cut out for a second.
What do you think of everybody in
it? I think Jamie Foxx he's just scene stealing, man. He's so funny in this. He's good. I wish we kind of got to know our actors a little bit more. Just kind of more three-dimensional. They're kind of caricatures in a way, and we don't really get a whole lot of like character development within even our main character. Tiana Paris is again also funny. She's, while being a lady of the night, she's also very smart, and also like she has these dreams of like being a journalist, and she like has all the Nancy Drew books at home, and she's like all about being a detective and figuring out what this like secret experimentation is all about. So she's a lot of fun. We have a good central cast, and John Boyega plays Fontaine with this he's a real serious street guy. He's not joking around with anyone. I just wish their characters had been fleshed out a little bit more.
Yeah, I get that. I like the way this film kind of spoofs the spaces it's coming from. Feels very self-aware, not only in the dialogue and the comedy, but also like in its general presentation. Andy mentioned the film grain, and that can't be understated. It is phenomenally dense film grain, probably too dense, at least in the early bits. Like I was genuinely like off-put by the way some of it looks, but once you start getting into the feature and you start getting into like, you know, the evening when things are going down, it's darker, you don't really notice it as much. Then you get into some kind of kooky sci-fi lighting. They have this really pretty like pink purple kind of lighting for all these sci-fi segments that actually comes off looking really good, I think, with it. You know, it's a tribute to what came before, not only like sci-fi movies, but blaxploitation films, right? Things like boy, I wish I had some of those on hand before I just walked.
Like coffee. I'm gonna get you, sucker. Like,
sure. It reminded me of Spike Jonze films. Reminded me also of Boots Riley, who I think Juel Taylor is likely a fan of, if they're not like cool or anything. Boots Riley recently did I'm a Virgo on Amazon short series, but more importantly did Sorry to Bother You, starring Lakeith Stanfield, who's in Haunted Mansion this week. That movie we covered on the show, also uniquely like sci-fi spin blaxploitation cinema, and it's really clever, and also goes to kooky places, I think. But I think that one just has a bit more style to it. This one's really good, really solid start. I want to see what Juel Taylor does next. And I appreciate that Netflix like greenlit this one, because so often Netflix will greenlight a feature that's just kind of mid, and this one feels better than that, and I'm really pleased to say that, at least for me.
Yeah, it's better than your average Netflix film. It's a good first outing. I mean, he's directed some things before, and he's most of his credits are actually writing. He wrote the screenplay to Creed 2, Space Jam Legacy.
Yes.
But you know, he's a seasoned Hollywood director and writer. This is a good kind of more solo thing. I'd be excited to see what he does next.
Any other thoughts or recommendations, Andy?
I think I'm ready.
Andy, would you recommend They Cloned Tyrone?
Well, I'd say save it for streaming. It's already on streaming. It's definitely something you can enjoy. It's a little bit long at a full 2 hours, but it is a fun time. We get a lot of great one-liners with Jamie Foxx. We get, again, it's shot in that blaxploitation style. I actually wish that I could have seen this in a theater, because like a lot of the lights and lighting and things like that would have looked great on the big screen in a dark room. So I would say save it for streaming.
Couldn't agree more about the theater point. I do wish I had been able to see this in a theater as well. I think it would have looked a lot better. That being said, solid. I think They Clone Tyrone's good stuff. You should totally check it out. It's a little odd, a little kooky, and unfortunately, like Andy said, it's a little long in the tooth, man. This should have been about a 90-minute movie. The 2 hours hurts it a little, but it's still good stuff. It is some of the better stuff that Netflix has put out recently. You should totally check out They Clone Tyrone. I'm glad we covered it. And with that, we got one more movie to cover, which is nuts. Like I said at the top, we didn't plan on doing this one. I saw it just last night, so I'm going to be taking the summary on this one. Please excuse my clumsy delivery. The movie is Disney's Haunted Mansion. So Haunted Mansion is an odd movie because it is an amusement park converted to film movie, amusement park ride, I should say. Much like Pirates of the Caribbean or 2003's Haunted Mansion starring Eddie Murphy, Haunted Mansion 2023 is the story of a haunted abode, a hovel, if you will, or at least a large house in New Orleans, where Lakeith Stanfield is a young, depressed ghost tour guide who really does not like giving ghost tours and does not like talking to people. The film actually opens and closes with him. Functionally, it's Lakeith Stanfield's movie. You wouldn't know it looking at the trailers. It looks a lot more like it's Rosario Dawson's film with her son, who are the residents of the mansion. They call Lakeith. They need help unhaunting their mansion. What I'm trying to say, exercise. I'm not even really sure. They need to figure something out because they move into this mansion from out of town, and it is horribly haunted with 999 souls, right? And they're looking for just one more, just like the ride at Disney World and Disneyland. Lakeith comes, and then they need a priest, and then they need a professor, and then they need a spiritualist, and they end up getting together this kind of Scooby-Doo gang of characters. You've got Rosario Dawson playing the mother, Owen Wilson playing Father Kent, a priest, Tiffany Haddish playing Harriet, who's a medium. Lakeith Stanfield, of course, is our skeptical ghost hunter, and Danny DeVito plays Bruce Davis, this really kooky like professor of spirituology or something who kind of shows up and just does the DeVito gag. A few other exciting characters mentioned: Jamie Lee Curtis. Dan Levy is in ads. He is barely in the film, which is really baffling. I don't know if they cut his scenes. And there's a couple others that I'll just leave. I could mention, but I think they're more fun. There are a couple good cameos that show up in the movie. The movie is Haunted Mansion. Normally here is where I'd ask Andy what he thinks, but he hasn't seen it. So Andy, what I'm going to ask you is, you predicted this was going to be a flop. You nailed this a couple weeks ago. You're like, I think Haunted Mansion's not going to do that good. So while I catch my breath here, can you tell people why, and then what actually happened?
So it's been a crowded summer, and there's just been, too many movies. And, May was good because we had Guardians of the Galaxy released at the beginning of May, and then there were, I think, 3 weeks until the next big movie, which was Fast X. So that gives time for a big hit like Guardians 3. It gives it a couple of weeks for everyone to go see that, and then audiences are fresh for the next one. But there's been so many big movies all during July, and this is coming a week after Barbenheimer, biggest weekend at the movies this year, probably going to be the biggest of the year at all. And you came out a week after, and no matter how good or bad those movies were, you were always just going to have a lot of competition. And yes, it is counter programming, like it's a movie for younger audiences, but it was going to have stiff competition, and it's a Halloween movie coming out in July, and it just looks very silly and very kiddie. Like I said, there's movies for kids and movies for babies. To me, this looked a little bit like a movies for babies side.
It's funny you mentioned Halloween movie because this movie definitely takes place around Halloween. There's actually a Halloween party in the film at one point. It's very obvious this is an October feature, and I want to talk about Disney putting it out in July a little later, towards the end of the review. For now, I want to dig into the meat here, what's going on. First off, our setting. We got to talk about the mansion, right? Because that's what it's based on. It's based on the amusement park ride, the Haunted Mansion, which was a hit at Disneyland, so they made it at Disney World. Now they've got it here. It's got a ton of the stuff from the mansion that you know and love. If you've seen the 2003 feature starring Eddie Murphy, it'll even have things like that were in that movie, right? It's the same kind of lore. You got Madame Leota and the head and the crystal ball. You got the axe wielding murderous bride ghost up in the attic. You got the 999 haunts. You got the graveyard outside. You got the Hatbox ghost. If you're a Disney fan, you're going to have pretty much everything you'd want from the ride. And I can say satisfyingly that the mansion is a lot of CGI, I'll admit. Right, Disney's kind of got that problem. They shoot a lot of stuff on green screen and put it together at the end. But for the most part, I like the look of it. It's a lot of dust. It's a lot of cobwebs. It's a lot of unique wallpapers, weird paintings, lots of props, lots of sets. I think that stuff's strong. Like, I think that's something I've railed on Disney in the past for not doing. Like, they just shoot things like Ant-Man, which is just all green screen. Like, this doesn't go that far. And the green screen stuff is a bit clumsy, but fundamentally, they're aiming at kids here, right? Like, you're aiming at an 8-year-old. And in that way, Haunted Mansion satisfyingly, like, creates a space for your characters to hang out in that isn't too much and isn't too weird, and fortunately walks this line between spooky horror and like Scooby-Doo-esque antics. I know I mentioned like the Scooby-Doo gang before, but it's really true. They mentioned Scooby-Doo at one point in the movie, like putting together the Scooby-Doo gang, and you have like outright Scooby-Doo gags, right? Like axe falls on the floor and lands right in between a character's legs, or Owen Wilson at one point is running away from a bunch of ghosts, and they're doing like the Shaggy and Scooby door gag, where they're like running in and out of one door and coming out another, and the other group comes out this way. Like it is much like the ride in the spirit of that it's spooky for sure, and there's a couple of decent jump scares for kids, definitely, but also it's like soft and there's not that much danger. And in that way, like, I think they nailed the kid angle great. I think it feels like the spirit of the ride because it's scary, but not that scary, right? Like, you know, you're going to get out on the other end of it. Feels like a great release for October. The reason it's coming out in July is because Disney did the math and they figured out that putting it out in July in theaters and then launching on Disney Plus in October would make them more money than just putting it out in theaters in October and then dropping it on Disney Plus in January. So that's the deal. They're doing this now so they can double dip in October and build ads that are like, come see the Haunted Mansion only on Disney Plus, right? I don't know if it'll convert subs. I don't know if people can subscribe for this movie. But what I do know is, at least in presentation, uniquely scary for a kids movie. Solid, like, first horror outing, I think. Also, you know, fun and soft-hearted. Now, Andy, I want to ask you something so I can give myself a chance to break here. Any questions for me? Give me a moment to collect my thoughts.
Well, I wanted to say that this looks like a straight to Disney Plus kind of movie, and it's probably filming that thing where it's like, well, it probably needed to be cheaper if they were going to do that, and since they spent too much money, it had to come out in theaters. But yeah, this looks exactly like something you might subscribe, or it might help you keep subscribers for sure. And yeah, it'll be perfect for October. It's just it probably didn't need a theatrical release.
I saw a great Reddit comment that said this is the most Disney Plus movie I've ever seen in a theater, which, like, I kind of feel like is true. And it's not because it's not theatrical. I think it's big. I think it's got good ideas. It's because it just doesn't come together like a big theatrical feature would. And I think the reason that is because of Disney meddling around in post-production. Justin Simien, I think, shot a pretty good movie here. Like, there's some solid camera work. A lot of really interesting angles, like setups and teardowns. Like, I can't imagine this was a short shoot schedule. Like, they had a lot of work going on in here. But the way it's put together in post has problems. There's scenes that don't quite lead into each other, or a character will say something really odd that's like 80 yards in that makes it feel like, oh, they just stuck that in so this scene could work later. Like, things are kind of spliced in. There's a little too much music, and it starts to feel like some board of directors or test audience watched this and thought, this doesn't move fast enough, tighten it up, move it along, but add a scene and reshoots. We'll put this in here and then cut this scene over here, and then we'll add this scene so this works. And it just feels like a really beautiful deck of cards that are just shuffled together in the wrong way. It doesn't feel like it's put together in the way it was shot. And I know movies have problems, could totally be on the back of director Justin Simien, but we've seen movies like this from Disney recently. We've definitely seen it before. I had the exact same feeling about Peter Pan and Wendy, a David Lowery film that was on Disney+. That movie feels like it's solid in the middle, and somebody shot it full of holes before it came out because they wanted to make sure it hit every test audience and hit every age bracket and somehow was something that it wasn't supposed to be, and that's suppressing, I think, what's really possible. I had no idea this was Lakeith Stanfield's movie from trailers. Like it really is shaped to be either your cast film with all of them in there getting equal time, which everybody gets pretty good time, or like mostly around Rosario Dawson and her son Chase Dillon, who's actually really funny in the movie, solid. But no, it opens and closes with Lakeith Stanfield. Like it is very much about him and his relationships. He's a three-dimensional character. He is functionally our charismatic lead, right? And it's surprising that that's the angle it takes when you actually get into it, especially because Lakeith Stanfield puts a lot of the movie on his back, man. He's really good, and he's got to work with a script and reshoots that like did not come together that great, and he does a great job. I loved him in Sorry to Bother You. I hope after the strike and this stuff comes out, he gets his pick of whatever he wants to do. He's great in this movie. He might be too good for it. Owen Wilson is also really funny. I know he's doing kind of like he's kind of turned into like old dad Owen Wilson now, but like still really funny, right? Like still has the comedy chops. DeVito is a laugh a minute, man. DeVito's so great. Like if you're a Danny DeVito fan, if you watch Always Sunny, like you're gonna love him. Tiffany Haddish is really funny. Rosario Dawson gets a couple good lines off. Couple other quick mentions while I'm thinking about it. Really brilliant costuming. I know the costume director of Atlanta said that he could put Lakeith Stanfield in anything and it would look good. It's true. You could put that man in anything and he'll look great in it, and it's used to great effect. The only one odd thing in the costuming is really bad wigs. Rosario Dawson has a terrible wig, and Tiffany Haddish has a bad wig too. The thing is, Tiffany Haddish is highly stylized because it's like this big like wrap that's like 3 foot tall.
Is it
so it
CGI?
Comes off looking no. It's not CGI. It's a real wig. Rosario Dawson gets done dirty though, and I don't get it because she is doing Ahsoka, right? And she's the lead on that, and like that's a whole thing. So I don't know if she had to have her hair cut for that, and they just like, here, put this wig on, it's fine, or what, but like does not quite work for the adult who cares about wigs. And one more mention, by the way, for director Justin Simien, my man just got burned on the Lando series. I don't know if you guys saw that story, but he was writing a Lando series for Disney Plus, and Disney just took it away from him and handed it to Donald and Stephen Glover. Solid win for them. Justin found out on Twitter. He didn't even know he lost it. And his movie came out this week, and the studio was just like, yep, you're done. You're washed. You're cooked. You're not making this series anymore. Like, that is bananas. Disney seems to have no qualms about burning their creators. It's really something else. Anyway, I need to start wrapping up my thoughts on this one. Andy, any other questions, concerns that you want to hit me with a rapid fire? What are you thinking?
I mean, so what are the things that you think work, and what do you think doesn't work? Because it doesn't seem like it's a bad movie. It's just kind of a bad release date.
That's a good question. Number one, the cast works. The cast works for sure. And number two, I genuinely think the visuals work great. If I was a kid, I would want to go to this mansion. I would be like, this is so cool. I would go to the parks and be like, oh my God, it's going to be just like the movie. Like in that way, mission accomplished. And I think that's because it's made by people who genuinely understand kind of the magic of what makes that ride cool. Like it's not just about like the kooky animatronics, and it's not even really about the setting. It's about the sensation of like being a little spooked, and Haunted Mansion doesn't shy away from that. Like that's good for kids. I would genuinely say this is a good early starter into something like horror. If you have like a 7 or 8 year old, they're like, I want to start watching scary movies, and they haven't seen this, I'd give them this, because there's like 6 jump scares in it, and they're all pretty good. And that's a good like starter for like, the feeling of dread that comes over you, and these ghosts start to come out after midnight. That stuff works. The things that don't work, like I said, are one, the editing. It's just put together in a weird way. It's just like there's lines that are ADR'd in. There's stuff that feels like it came from reshoots. People kind of waver on costumes in between stuff. It's weird, and I can't quite put my finger on why that is, but I think it's due to problems in post. I think just something didn't come together. They had the VFX stuff. Number 2, the VFX. The VFX are not always great. That's true. But like for a kid, shoot, man. Like they're going to be into it, right? Like that's firmly who this is aimed at. It's labeled PG-13. I feel like it would probably go near something like Hocus Pocus or Halloween Town on Disney. Like come Halloween, I'll probably throw on Haunted Mansion in the background. Like it's genuinely not that bad. Number 3, and this is something I wanted to save for the end, the product placement. We got to talk about the product placement in this movie. I wrote a short list, which is good. I'll pull it up now, of services that are mentioned in the film. We're going to start with Zillow, CVS, Amazon, and Baskin Robbins, just off the top. Services that are mentioned and seen physically include Yankee Candle and Burger King, and then Budweiser and Ford are both featured prominently in scenes, whether it be a car or a can or a
Burger
bottle,
King.
all over the place. It is the weirdest thing. This movie cuts to a scene of Owen Wilson and Lakeith Stanfield in the car, and Owen Wilson is eating Burger King with like onion rings and the bags facing perfectly out at the screen. And I'm like, this is a Disney feature? What is going on? What's going on is they need to make their money back. And some of those lines like are genuinely ADR'd in there. Like Baskin Robbins isn't even said on screen. It's an ADR line. And I'm like, what is that? Like, did you guys know when this was coming together in post that you need to start making money back now? So you go hit your corporate sponsors and you're like, hey, look, we'll get you a spot in, Haunted Mansion. You can do a spooky flavor for July. I don't know, but like weird amount of product placement in Haunted Mansion. If you watch it, spot it with your friends. I bet you'll have a good time trying to spot all the. I didn't even get them all. Those are the ones I can remember. So odd. Ultimately, like I think the movie is not bad. I think the budget is too big, and I think there's too many cooks in the kitchen that are trying to decide what it's going to be. They're not just letting the people who make it, and it cause problems. It's not a bad feature, but I don't know. It comes out being less than the sum of its parts, just a little, but still a fun one. And had it come out in October, I think it would have gotten more money. I think it would have done better. I think it would have gotten a better return. I think. With my huge ramble, I'm ready to roll into recommendations. Andy, I guess you don't have a recommendation.
No, what I was going to say,
go
my
ahead.
last thing is like one of the reasons I thought this was coming out in July was to kind of promote the theme parks, and so people would go in like August and before school starts, or in the fall, and go see the Haunted Mansion. But I think your insight about the this is going to come out in October on Disney Plus is probably more accurate.
I mean, it definitely will. I do think it will help pull people into it at the parks for sure. But like Haunted Mansion is a notoriously popular ride at both of those theme parks. So like, I don't know if you really needed the bump. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if it's going to sell tickets per se. But yeah, I do think it's, like a uniquely not bad feature. Like the cast does a great job lifting the script. Like I think Justin Simien has a really good eye for where the camera needs to go and what to do with it. It just, I don't know. It's a little too long. 2 hours, 3 minutes, a little long, I'll admit. But I liked it. I did like Haunted Mansion. So with that, I should say I do recommend Haunted Mansion. Maybe not for theaters, right? Unless you got a kid who wants to go see it, or like a soft date night, go see Haunted Mansion. Like seriously, you'll get a couple laughs. DeVito's funny. Lakeith Stanfield is oozing charisma. Rock solid all around. And if not, wait for streaming. It'll be on streaming in October on Disney Plus. That's where you'll be able to watch it. They will be promoting it. Totally fine Halloween watch. Totally fine stay in date night Halloween watch if that's your fancy, right? Or throw it on for the kids. Like totally fine. Haunted Mansion, not a bad movie. I just wish the budget was smaller. So God, maybe it wouldn't be a bomb. You know what I mean? Like in another world, there might be a Haunted Mansion too, but probably not going to happen. Another Disney dud. And with that, we should kind of wrap the show.
A Disney dud on Disney Plus.
Disney dud on Disney Plus. I've been focus testing Dudney, but I don't think it works. It doesn't come across. It's not obvious enough. But Andy, what are we watching next week?
We are watching Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Mutant Mayhem. This has actually gotten some buzz. The new animated Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movies. Heard a lot of good things. It's already out as of today. Tuesday, its actual release is tomorrow, Wednesday, but there's already been some previews on Mondays and Tuesdays, so that's the big release for the week, along with the Meg 2. That's just an FYI release. We're not going to be watching that for the show. We're also going to be taking a look back at Pain and Gain, which is Michael
Bay. It's Michael Bay's magnum. Arguably Michael Bay's best film, which is crazy. Yeah, I have an explanation for this. Andy and I both desperately did not want to watch Meg 2: The Trench, so we decided we'd maybe do something on streaming. Not long ago, I subbed to Paramount Plus. I killed my Apple TV Plus subscription. I'll come back around on it for Severance Season 2. But I was on there looking, and I saw they had Pain and Gain. I've wanted to watch it again for a while. I have not gone back and revisited it since I watched it probably in college, and I'm uniquely stoked to see it. Solid summer flick, right? Maybe some of Dwayne Johnson's best work. Really excited to watch Pain and Gain, so we'll have to get back with you on that. Bit of a throwback review. If you want to check that out, that's on Paramount Plus. Meanwhile, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Mutant Mayhem is having screenings as early as tonight. Last night they did like fan event screenings. So it'll be out, I think, by the time this review comes out. It'll definitely be out tomorrow or whenever you want to go see it. If you want to keep up with us to see what we think of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or Pain and Gain, or you want to follow up with us on any of these features we talked about today, easiest way to do that is to find us on any of those social media sites out there, right? We're on Facebook, where we live stream the show every Tuesday, right around 5 o'clock CST. We're on YouTube, where we're uploading our shows, individual reviews. Dude, insane things going on the YouTube. Insane things happening on the YouTube page. Please go check us out. Oh my God, you don't want to miss it. One day you're going to come find us at a house party. You're going to be like, I don't believe it, 1 million subs. How did it happen? And we're going to say, you should have checked out the YouTube page. Like, dude, the YouTube page is coming along. So maybe not that clean, but really clean. We're on iTunes. We're on Instagram. We're on Twitter. We're on Spotify. Anywhere else you can find us on social media, anywhere else you can find us in audio platforms, we are available. The best way to keep up with us there is just to subscribe. Just subscribe to your boys here at Off Script Film Review to get new episodes every single Tuesday delivered straight to your device. And leave us a rating and review while you're at it. You have no idea how much that helps us. Big deal. Subscribe, like, comment, ring this notification alarm. Do whatever you got to do. But come check out more from Off Script next week when we cover Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Pain and Gain. Unrealistically stoked for Pain and Gain. And I'm getting nervous because I haven't seen it in so long. I'm like, maybe it's trash. But we know we're going to find out together. So that's the deal. From all of us at Off Script, the home of bold cinema, I'm Zach Lewis.
And I'm Dr. Draper.
Thanks for watching.